if you're on social media, and I'm sure a lot of our audience here is on social media, you're basically renting your audience, right? If Facebook shuts down, if LinkedIn goes out of business, then you lost a way to reach your audience. You may have built up like a following of 1,000, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. If you don't make sure that you're keeping contact with them, then all of that work will be for nothing. If the algorithm changes, if you get banned, if you get blocked from the platform, goes under, right? So an email list is just making sure that you collect their email addresses and you're marketing to them. You're delivering content, you're delivering value to them via email. So that's what ultimately an email list is, and that's why it's so important.
Hi, and welcome to the 91 Day Success Podcast. I'm Jonathan, and I am so happy today. I've got Hinly Wong with me from Canada to chat with us about all things digital marketing and more. Hinley's got a great background and some really interesting stories to share, and I'm super excited to have the opportunity to chat with him today. Hinley, as we get started, I know one of the things that drew me to you was that journey that you've made from freelancer to agency and then beyond. Can you share a little bit with our audience about who you are and a bit about that journey as a way to get us started?
Yeah, for sure. So my journey, it's very interesting because it's almost a parallel journey. It's both a physical journey and a career-related journey, if you will. Let's start with copywriting because that's where I got my start. That's still what I do. But essentially, I started at this film studio. I was a content creator for them. I quit that internship, believe it or not, because it just wasn't a great place to work at. I had a pretty abusive boss. But what I did take away from that experience was I learned what copywriting was. So at the time, I had another colleague who told me, you'd be really great at this thing called copywriting. And back then I was like, but what is copywriting? And so I did what any curious person would do, and I looked into it. Started to fall in love with this world that I never knew existed. At the time, I figured, okay, this was the career I wanted to go into. This is what I wanted to do. So I got into freelancing. I wanted to build a portfolio because that at the time, that was what I believed to be the route to getting my foot in the door. But as I did that, I came to the realization that, hey, I'm working with a bunch of clients. I'm working with a bunch of cool companies. Why not just make this the job?
I love it. I love it.
Instead of building a portfolio towards an agency job, I was like, I could be the agency. I could be the job. Also, because at the time, this was during COVID. This was when COVID hit. And I, believe it or not, yes, I currently live in Canada, but I'm from Hong Kong. I was born and raised there. So at the time, there was also the Hong Kong protests happening in the background. There was a lot of things going on, and I needed something to do that I could do from home and from anywhere, because I also I wanted to get out. I wanted to get out of Hong Kong. It just wasn't the place that I knew anymore. I knew and loved anymore.
Sure.
And so the rest was history. I went all into freelancing. I basically went into entrepreneurship. And ever since, I've worked with a bunch of clients over the years, one of which being Alan Dibb. If anyone listening to this doesn't know, he is the author of the One-Page Marketing Plan, which has been the number one best global selling book on marketing on Amazon. So it's a very influential book. He's a very influential, mind in the marketing and business space. And so it's a really interesting story because I sent a really gutsy cold email to Alan and his team, and they loved it. They loved what I put in there. They loved the work that I showed them, and they brought me on originally as their copywriter, working on their sales pages, their funnels, their emails, a lot of the stuff that I did with them, and really a lot of my clients, is those evergreen sales systems and assets. So I like to call them assets and systems. Assets being your sales pages, your individual emails, systems being entire funnels, entire automations, and how those kind of work together. And since working with Alan and his team, I've basically now I lead marketing for them as their marketing manager, as well as working with other clients on the side. My freelance hustle is still alive and well. And I've worked with pretty amazing people, for example, David Jennings, the author of Systemology, and Janelle Wilson, who is the founder of Savvy Ray. And she's very well known for her female perspective on real estate investing. And yeah, just worked with a bunch of different people over the years. And it's really great to, now that I'm recounting this story, looking back on that journey and going, wow, I did that.
It's very impressive. It's again, and what a great journey to share. It's great to hear that and hear your success. I got to admit, as I hear about that, I'm really curious if you can remember, if you can share. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that gutsy email that you sent to Alan and his team. Could you share with our audience a little bit? I think as business owners, we often are in that spot where we believe we can add a lot of value. And some of us are, maybe not myself, but maybe on occasion, we're a little timid to reach out and to make that gutsy email. Can you tell us maybe what draw you to do that and a little bit about what that email is about to inspire some of our audience?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people, they get really nervous when it comes to cold email and cold pitching. I believe there's a right way of doing it, and I believe there's a wrong way of doing it. Most people do it
Absolutely.
wrong, which is why you get a lot of people getting really afraid of cold pitching, because it's, oh my God, I don't want to be known as that person. I don't want to be known as that person who sent a really spammy email or a spammy DM. And a spammy email and a spammy DM could damage your reputation, right?
Absolutely.
It could really hurt you in the long run. So what I did, and what I really recommend people doing when it comes to cold email, is lead with value. So what I did, I can't really get into specifics because that's, if I did, we would be here for the entire hour. But what I ended up doing was I took a couple of their emails that I figured were really good, but if they just made a few more tweaks, could really push them to the next level. So I took those few emails, I made tweaks, I made edits, and I added in my recommendations. I sent it to them, told them, hey, you can use these if you want, completely on the house, just want to provide value to you. But if you do want to work with me long-term, and I'd love to work with you long-term, then reply to this email and let's start a conversation. Doesn't even need to be a yes, just have that call.
I love it. What a great way to reach out. I love that concept, Hinly, of giving value, just saying, hey, here's some thoughts, here's some things, feel free to use them, that perceive that there's no expectation of, yeah, DM me and I'll tell you and I'm going to charge you all this money, but here, let me show you my value. I love that, because to me, that's so true of the way to build those relationships, in that if you're willing to step out and say, hey, I'm willing to give you value with no expectation in return, because I believe in the long run, it's going to benefit everybody. What a great strategy. I love that as a way to do things. And obviously in your case, it turned out well because you got the job, right?
Yeah, I did. I think it came down to luck too, because they just so happened to be looking for a copywriter. It just happened to enter into your inbox. So what I will say is that cold email is a numbers game, and then it's also a bit of a luck game. The stars do have to align a bit, but when they do, and when it does hit, and I like to call it my breakthrough client, once you hit that breakthrough client, it really changes the game for you in a ton of ways.
Well, and I think what you're stating is so true, and I think it fits in any type of cold outreach. It is a numbers game, whether we're talking about the old-fashioned, I'm much older than you, but picking up the phone and dialing to call somebody, or cold email or cold DM or anything like that. It is absolutely a numbers game. And I think you're very wise in stating that there's also a bit of luck involved, because timing is everything. had that email got to Alan's team at a different time, maybe they wouldn't have had a need, wouldn't have maybe or maybe not implemented your ideas, but if they didn't have a need, they wouldn't have reached out. But as I tell so
Exactly.
many people in coaching is, if you don't take that swing, you're never going to hit the ball. So you've got to at least go, hey, I'm willing to swing 1,000 times and only hit a few, because that way, at least I'm still hitting a few. And like you said, that one home run or that one breakthrough client can make just a tremendous difference in that process. One of the things I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you talk about is an email list. And I know it's something that a lot of our customers and our audience really struggle with. As a copywriter and somebody with the marketing experience you've got, Hinly, can you talk to me about why that email list is so important, and maybe even provide a couple of tips or bits of encouragement to our audience when they're going, yeah, but I just don't know what I do with it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Ooh, this is a very layered question. Let's start with the number one thing, right? What is an email list and why do we need it? So the number one thing being, if you're on social media, and I'm sure a lot of our audience here is on social media, you're basically renting your audience, right? If Facebook shuts down, if LinkedIn goes out of business, then you lost a way to reach your audience. You may have built up like a following of 1,000, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. If you don't make sure that you're keeping contact with them, then all of that work will be for nothing. If the algorithm changes, if you get banned, if you get blocked from the platform, goes under, right? So an email list is just making sure that you collect their email addresses and you're marketing to them, you're delivering content, you're delivering value to them via email. So that's what ultimately an email list is, and that's why it's so important. I guess you could still argue that an email list is still technically rented, right? Because you still need
Fair enough. No, that's fair. Yeah.
software. You still need the software to email them. But even if that software shuts down, like for example, I use ActiveCampaign right now. If ActiveCampaign goes under, then cool. I'll just download that CSV file and I'll just import it into another email marketing software. So it's more versatile and it's not as volatile as, say, marketing on purely social media or on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the thing that I would really do, so in terms of tips, right? So the first thing is growing your email list. The number one thing I would say is sell your email list like it's a product. Your email list is treat it like any one of your products, even if people can get in for free, right? The most important thing that I don't see a lot of people doing is that they'll go, oh yeah, here's like a newsletter, sign up, and then they won't do much else. You want to do more than that. You want to actually, and what I do with my email list landing page is I almost turn it into a sales page. And this is something that I got from a really well-known email copywriter, Daniel Frossel. So what he does is he turns his entire email landing page into a sales page. So he'll sell his email list as if it was a product. He'll go, reason number 1 to join my email list, reason number 2, reason number 3. And then he'll have social proof. He'll have actual replies from his emails to actually sell the thing. And that's something that's really important because this is a huge asset for your business. If you grow your email list, it's going to make you money time and time again. So why wouldn't you sell it like your life depends on it? The second thing that I would do is people don't just opt in for emails. They usually opt in because there's a bribe of some sort. So what I would do is I would create a lead magnet. I would create something a resource that's super valuable that people will give their email addresses in exchange for. So this can be a live training. This can be a guide. This can be an ebook. This can be a template. Whatever it is, make sure that it's quick and actionable, right? So it's got to be easy to digest because right now we live in an age where people just want stuff fast. They want stuff that's easy to consume because people are busy. Especially if you're marketing to business owners, you need things to be very easy to consume. Then you want it to be actionable, right? You want it to get them a quick result so that they can actually see the value in whatever expertise you have to provide. And then once you have your lead magnet, you want to just push it in as many marketing channels as you possibly can, right? In conversations, in your posts, in your comment sections, your bio, right? Make sure that you're promoting this lead magnet or your email list wherever you can, as much as you can. And that's really the more basic things that I would do to grow my list. Other things that I would potentially look into, right, if you want to grow even faster, is do collaborations, right? I would almost treat an email list as a separate social media channel. A lot of growth tactics are very similar to other social platforms, right? Like one of the main things that, for example, I'm working on with SuccessWise is building up their collaboration strategy, right, to grow their list. And what we'll do is we'll identify people who have similar audiences, but perhaps they offer different subject material. Maybe this person dives deeper into systems. Maybe this person dives deeper into business operations. So we'll identify these people who have large audiences and we'll collaborate with them. We'll do like a list swap. So that would mean mentioning us to their email list, almost like an ad, and we'll do the same for them. Or maybe even just doing like a joint collaboration, like a joint training, a joint promotion even. And so doing that where you're collaborating with other people who have similar audiences and similar audience sizes, where you can basically borrow their audience as well.
I love that.
Really helpful for growing your email list.
Great advice. Great tips. I love the idea of, again, selling that email list. I know so many entrepreneurs and business owners just don't realize the value in that list. And you're right. That list has so much incredible value to build value for the company on a long-term basis. And I think selling that as we'd sell any other product or service makes sense. I also, and something I hadn't thought of, but I really like, you made a point about, and I'm thinking of the lead magnet that we use, which is a marketing checklist, but something that can give them value quickly in just a few minutes, not something that's going to require, not necessarily a course. It's going to take 4 hours to go through, or even for that matter, 20 minutes to go through, but something that you can give them a value that literally in today's instantaneous mindset culture can give them value within just minutes, I think is a huge, huge tip there that even I just sent a message to my sales manager about, hey, we need to remind the team that when we're selling, we got to sell it this way, because it is so true. People, I don't want to download something that then I have to invest a lot of time to do, even as it comes to watching stuff on that. I think half the videos that people recommend to me, I use AI now to summarize and give me 10 bullet points on it before I watch this 20-minute long video, because I don't want to watch 20 minutes and waste my time. I'd rather take 30 seconds and go, yep, that makes sense. And I think our lead magnets need to do the exact same thing. If you would, I'm going to ask one more question on the lead magnet, because that's such a critical part of building that list. How do you recommend people engage with a copywriter like yourself? Because obviously that lead magnet is a marketing piece as well. How does the copywriter, whether that be somebody on staff or a freelancer like yourself or an agency, how does that, from our audience perspective as a business owner, when do they engage that copywriter, and how do they engage with that copywriter to make sure that lead magnet not only provides value to the customer, but creates tremendous credibility and encourages action on the part of the person that just downloaded it?
This is an interesting question. What I would say is you need to identify what your endpoint is, right? Before even thinking about your lead magnet, before even thinking about all the email stuff like welcome sequences, funnels, automations. For example, one of the things I'm working on right now with a client is we're completely overhauling their welcome sequence. We're segmenting people. We're making sure that the right people are being led into the right products. And so that involves a lot of different email sequences. That involves a lot of different steps. But at the core of it, how I would think about it first, right? And obviously, it depends on the copywriter as well. There are some copywriters who are just order takers. So then you have to do a lot of the strategic thinking on your own. and this is different for every copywriter, so I would do my due diligence, right? Me, for example, I am more of a strategic thinker as well as a copywriter. So I'm a thinker and a doer. And that's really helpful for my clients because a lot of times when they come to me, they have a goal. And that's what I require from them for the most part is have a goal, have a very specific goal for this lead magnet, for this email sequence. In 99% of the cases, it's buy a product, buy a very specific product, right? So understanding that first and foremost, what your goal is. So if we take that example of the course, like buying a course, right? Then let's have a think about, okay, if somebody doesn't quite know about the course yet, what is it that they need to move forward in this sales conversation, right? So we're mapping out that customer journey. We need to think, okay, this person has been watching my content. What do I need to do to provide them with even more value to get them interested, not only interested in joining my email list, right? But also getting them into a place where their most logical next step is getting that product, right? So for example, type of thing. One of my recent clients, she's a psychotherapist, right? And she deals with stress and anxiety. One of our lead magnets is a quiz that actually helps the person self-diagnose if what they're feeling is a specific type of anxiety, whether that's health anxiety or OCD, right? And so that brings them to the next step, right? So they've successfully diagnosed themselves. Obviously, we have that caveat of this is not an actual official diagnosis. This is just for your personal, this is for your own personal clarity. But what happens after that is they'll get opted into the email list. They know what they have. They know what their problem is. Yep. They have that clarity on what their issue is. So then the most logical next step is, okay, what's the solution? How do I gain the tools to manage this then? Right? And so that's what the course comes in for. And that led to double the sales that she was getting monthly, which was more sales than she was ever getting before. So that was a really great win for her. But it also shows the importance of understanding the customer journey. It shows the importance of start with the end point and then work your way backwards from there and understand the steps that people need to take in order to come to the conclusion that, okay, what we want our audience to do is the most logical next step in their perspective. Hope that answers
Love it. No, it did. I'm literally, I feel like a sponge at the moment. You're just imparting so much knowledge in there. And I'm not a copywriter. So as you're sharing these things, I'm going, oh, that makes so much sense. And that's brilliant. Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think that's exactly what I was hoping for, to give some insight, because as a business owner, I'm not a copywriter. I think most of us are not copywriters, and we see the value in it, but we often don't understand it. And the way you described that there, Hinly, I think was fantastic, because it helps me, and I'm sure our audience as well, have a better perspective on, one, why do we need a professional copywriter? Because there's so much value being added, but also what questions do we need to do? And something as simple as letting that copywriter know what it is that we want to happen. Like you said, it's generally selling a product or a service, but making sure we're very clear as business owners and as entrepreneurs on what that needs to be. Not broad, I want to sell more, or I want to book more appointments, but we need to be very specific so that you as a copywriter can hit all the right buttons of that prospect in order to get them to take that desired next action. I love the strategy that I see in my mind coming together behind that to create compelling marketing copy that ultimately provides huge value to the end user. It's not only impactful and effective to get them to take an action, but it's also providing them with tremendous value because they decided to take that action, because you're pulling in the people that are going to benefit from whatever that product or service can be. Oh no, I love it. That was a great answer. My mind's just, I said, I'm processing. Sorry.
Yeah.
For there for just a second.
No worries. And it's a lot that the copywriter does, both from a strategic point of view, assuming you have a good copywriter on hand. It's very funny because I say this because a lot of the times my clients come to me And they'll have a negative experience in the past of a copywriter. They'll be like, my God, this person just didn't get it. Oh, this person just, they weren't like thinking about things like I needed them to, and it just wasn't great. I think one of the people that I currently work with, so she isn't necessarily a client, but her clients, she passes on her clients to me because we have a sort of symbiotic relationship. She's a digital strategist, so a lot of her clients would need copy, or even just a lot of that strategic, on the ground, in the trenches thinking and work that I help people with. It's really funny because she'll say, a lot of my clients in the past, whenever I've referred a copywriter to them or referred them to a copywriter I know, they'll come back to me crying
Oh no.
because the copywriter just traumatized them. And that was very funny to me because I've almost become a fixer in a way.
Sure.
And I would definitely say, yeah, like when you engage with a copywriter, make sure that you have a goal. First and foremost, I always tell my clients, just tell me what your goal is and I'll make it happen. Or,
Love it.
You know, if I can't make that happen, then we'll figure something out. And then the next piece of that I would say is, before you go completely gung-ho and work with a copywriter, is make sure that you're very clear on who your target audience is. Make sure that you have a product market fit. So those things come first. Oftentimes someone will come to me and they'll be very early on in their business, and I would say it's not a great fit because you need to actually do a lot of this strategic thinking that I can't provide, because this is quite literally the fundamentals of your business, right? Like, offer needs to be finalized, not necessarily finalized, but it needs to get to a point where you have a minimum viable product, and you need to have validation from the market. So what that means is you need to have successfully sold that to your target audience in some way, shape, or form. And beyond that, you should also have an overarching marketing strategy. So what a copywriter cannot do is they're not a miracle worker. So for example, if you want me to create a lead magnet and welcome sequence for you, great, awesome. I'll craft something that's going to convert really well for you. But if you don't have the traffic coming onto that page, if you don't have the audience that's coming through, then it's not going to work.
Absolutely.
Because I can't convert zero.
Makes perfect sense.
Exactly. So that's something that I would say in terms of engaging a copywriter and when it's the best time to work with one.
So in a moment here, we're going to share all of your contact information, Hinly. I know you still do freelancing, and if somebody wants to reach out to you, I assume you're open to conversations with people there. But in general, a lot of us business owners, maybe we haven't hired a copywriter before, not sure how to go about that. Could you give us 2 or 3 tips on where to find quality copywriters? And I know there's a difference, just like in the marketing business, there's a huge difference between marketing agencies with integrity that are really focused, and copywriters, again, that have that integrity and are focused in what they're doing. How does a business go about finding a good quality copywriter, and where do they begin that search?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. First and foremost, I currently have a wait list.
Fair enough.
We booked a
Good
bit.
to know.
Booked a bit full. But if anyone listening to this is interested in working with me, feel free to shoot me a DM. Feel free to sign up for the wait list. And once capacity is open, I'll reach out. But as for finding the right copywriter, so what I would do is I would, as tempting as it is, try and stay away from platforms like Upwork or Fiverr. Not to say that those platforms are terrible, but it's almost going to a casino.
Yeah,
you might
absolutely.
like gambling. If you are a fan of gambling, great. I'm sure there's some great talent on Upwork and Fiverr, but most of the time, you're gonna get the bottom of the barrel. You're gonna get not so great people. You're gonna get a lot of not so great people before you actually reach a copywriter who's actually going to do great work for you. And then at that point, it's great. You've basically paid double what you would have actually paid in the first place. Right. So what I would instead do is I would look on social platforms. A lot of copywriters are very active on social media. I would start with LinkedIn. I would start with Instagram even, and just search for copywriters. There's a search bar. You can search for copywriters. Then I would very closely look at either their portfolio, if they have one, or their testimonials, right? I'll look at the people that they've worked with. I would look very closely if the people that I've worked with are similar to what I do, right?
Yep.
So if they're a copywriter coaches, and narrow the search down. If you're a coaching business, search for copywriters for coaches. If you are a SaaS company, search for copywriters for SaaS companies, right? And just go from there if you're searching from scratch. But if you, for example, if you've worked with other service providers in the past, let's say you've worked with a social media manager, let's say you've worked with a designer, let's say you've worked with even a business coach, right? Normally, most of the time, they would know a copywriter that they really trust. Like service providers have very tight networks. And so most cases, they would have someone that they can recommend you. So you wouldn't even need to search. You could just ask them to give you a name, and you can look into that. And that's actually how a lot of people find me, is I get referrals from people that I know in the space. So that is where I would start to look for a copywriter.
Great advice. Great advice. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that guidance, because I think that's so important across the board. So one of the things that I love to ask all of our guests, and the name of the podcast is the 91 Day Success Podcast. Hinly, with your experience, I'm really curious to get your perspective on this, but I love to ask you, if you had to start over and we gave you $1,000, you had your house and you had a place to live and food and transportation. You didn't need to pay that for your bills, but you had $1,000 to build a new company. And your goal was to build it so that you were making $10,000 a month by the end of the third month, or 91 days down the road. What would you do in the first 91 days to help build a company? I don't really care about industry, although you can certainly talk about that, but I'm more interested from an entrepreneur business skill perspective. You leveraging your copywriting, email, and marketing skills. What would you do in the first 91 days to build that business, to create a solid foundation?
For sure. Let's make this a very general business, right?
Sure.
What I would really do, so I would split this into phases, right? So for those first 30 days, what I do is just get very clear on who it is I'm marketing to, right? Get clear on my target audience, get clear on my messaging, get clear on my marketing strategy. And so this is a completely, sorry, my thought is.
You're good.
What I would say is get the foundations right. Going back to Alan Dibb, so his book, The One-Page Marketing Plan, is perfect for this. So he lays out all the foundations. What I would do that $1,000 is actually buy the one-page marketing plan, and
Perfect.
then lay out that marketing plan, right? Because it's very simple. It's identifying your messaging, your target audience, which media channels to advertise on, how you're going to capture leads. So how you're going to build your email list, how you nurture those leads. So how are you going to turn those people into buyers, and then sales conversion. So how are you going to make those sales? And then how you're going to turn those sales into repeat sales. So identifying that core strategy is like the very first thing that I would do in those first 30 days. Just get very clear on it. In fact, what I would even do in those first 30 days is try and do more market research interviews. So if I have a product or I have a service, I want to get that into the hands of beta testers. I would want to I would want to interview my target audience, put out surveys, get as much info from the market as possible to inform my messaging and inform my marketing strategy. And then the second month, what I would do is I would deploy. So what I would do first and foremost is I would go cold, right? So I would do cold outreach in that first, second month, because I want to inject that cash flow into the business to get it going. And then I can just reinvest that into like actual content marketing. So what I would do is I would reach out. This depends on if you're a service business or a product business. For purposes of convenience, I'll just say it's a service business. I'll reach out to companies who might be a great fit. I'll provide value first, and then just try and get them onto calls. I would even sweeten the deal. I would even discount this initial offer. I would discount the initial service so that I can get testimonials. I can get that social proof. I can get that market validation. And then with that second month, after I've gotten some sales into the business, I would then reinvest that into what makes sense for the marketing strategy. So if I want to focus on building my email list, which is probably what I would do, is I would potentially invest into paid ads. I might even reach out to podcasts such as yours and try and get on podcasts, try and get in front of as many people as possible manually as opposed to organically to jumpstart that traffic source. And then content would be last in that sequence of events.
Perfect. No, I think that's great advice. And I love the fact that you would do what I call sharpen the saw or sharpen the axe, and that you would take that first month to do the necessary research to find out what you needed to know so you know how to appeal to that audience. I think that's something so often we miss is we forget we can ask our audiences what it is they want and what it is that would make their lives better and what that might look like. And in most cases, they'll tell us. And then we can cater our marketing and our services and our offerings to make sure that we're hitting those issues that they're struggling with so that we can indeed make their lives better if they choose to work with us. Great advice, Hinly. I love it. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today on the podcast. That you've added just some huge value, and I really appreciate just the down-to-earth perspective that you bring to the table. I can see why you've got an absolute full waiting list of clients waiting to work with you, and I'm so thankful that you took some time to share some of that expertise with us today. Hinly, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you. If you've stuck with us through the end of the podcast, you know how grateful I am for that. I want to thank you for your time. I want to encourage you, if you have needs in it regarding copywriting or whatever, sign up for Hinly's email list. We'll put his links here so you can do that. You can find him on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out if you want and maybe wait on his waiting list. But if nothing else, take his advice to heart and learn how to add copywriting to your marketing to add even more value. With that, I want to encourage everybody, make it a great day, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.